Welcome to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I'm your host, Darrell Scott, and together we will dive into the lives and careers of the jazz legends who have left a rhythmic imprint on the world. Be prepared to reminisce on the highs and the lows of their musical journey and the trials that sculpted their timeless musical gems. We'll preserve the legacy of these extraordinary maestros and find inspiration in the melodies of their lives. Subscribe now and never miss a beat. Now, let's get to the show. Hi there, and welcome to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I am Darrell Scott. Our guest today is a man, he plays, but he plays this funny, I call it a funny instrument, and we'll talk about the unique respect he has for Chuck Mangione here in a minute. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Rob Zinn. Rob, how are you today?
Hello, Darrell. I'm doing great. Thanks for including me in your podcast. I'm honored and flattered, and I appreciate the conversation we're about to have. And any insight I can provide to your listeners will be terrific.
And the check is in the mail. I don't know why that's appropriate. Okay, let's start with this. When did you decide that music was going to be a part of your life? I'm always interested in how this process begins with every artist.
Yeah, it's a great question, and my journey is a little different than maybe some of the others that you have on your show. Um, First of all, my father was a very strict man. He was an FBI agent. So when I was growing up playing music in school and in the jazz bands and all-state band and things like that, he really deterred me from seeking a life as a full-time musician. It was something that I was interested in, but I was 15, 16 years old, so he kind of dissuaded me from that. So I went on and got my schooling in other things and my degrees in other things, but I always played. I played in the college band, I played in college jazz band, marching band, concert band, things like that. Um, and then after I got out of college, I continued to play around town in big bands. I got my early start playing in big bands, 15, 17-piece swing bands, which was really a great way for me to learn when I was a teenager. And started playing, dance party bands and funk bands and blues bands. And I played in a ska band, original ska band for a while. But so I always played, and jazz, of course. But I never did what I'm doing right now. So it was about 8 or 9 years ago when I decided that I wanted to explore, and it's kind of comical because I didn't really know what I didn't know back then.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have a really good friend, Andrew Neu.
Yes,
He's a national musician, and
been on the show.
yeah, Bob Caldwell and all that. So Andrew and I go way back, and I said, "Hey, I want to become this national musician. What do I need to do?" So he kind of coached and guided me, which was very appreciative. And that was about 8 or 9 years ago when I cut my first album and released it, and I think it was 2017. And I'm working on my fourth album right now. I've come a long way, and I decided, I stopped playing in all the bands I was in and just concentrated on, being a contemporary jazz artist. I'd never written my own music. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
even a school music major, so as far as theory and things like that, I mean, I know chords and play piano and all that. I do my writing on piano. So it's been a real eye-opening experience for me to understand how to compositionally put together a song that people might want to hear. So, and of course, the real trick to that, Darrell, is hooking up with great producers. And that's what I've done. Adam Hawley,
Mm-hmm.
Nils, Jipter, the great Paul Brown, and Greg Manning have all been producers of mine over the past years. And that's been a real great experience for me learning from, those pros and how to put together a song and what are the components of a great song. So, and also bringing great guest artists like, Paul himself, Nils. My next release is a Nils song. That's going to be really cool. And, Michael Paolo has played a lot as well as Andrew. He's guested a lot on my songs. So it's been it's been a pretty cool experience, but not a music major. So I spent a lot of my life just playing in local bands and cutting my teeth on that. And I believe all that prepared me for what I'm going through right now. My music, I'm very wordy here, but my music brings in all kinds of different styles of music. It's not just grooves and moves. I have Latin, I have blues influences, I have pop influences, jazz funk influences, and I bring that into all my music. Um, as being representative of me, of my artistry, and I love that. I mean, different artists have different styles of music, and some
Hmm.
of them are very similar, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So my identity is kind of all over the map, all underneath the contemporary jazz, but it's different styles, and I hope has helped separate me as an artist than some of the others.
So you mentioned it's the your latest is your eighth album. Is that what I remember hearing?
Fourth,
Fourth
fourth.
album. What have you learned fourth, from first to fourth? What is different about you, your sound, how you put together your music? What have you learned?
Well, my first album I did locally when I was living in Wilmington, Delaware, and I had a great producer, and he had a lot of experience. He was a touring artist in the '80s all over the world with a pop band, so he really knew what was going on, but I didn't. So I was putting together these compositions that were not necessarily smooth jazz and contemporary jazz. So after my first album, I had one radio single from that album called Yesterday Again, and it went out January 2017. So I talked to Andrew and he said, hey, great debut album. You probably want to step it up for your next one. And what that principally really meant to me was you need to get a great producer. So Paul Brown produced my entire second album called Walk the Walk, and I had a lot of singles off of that. And I was really proud of that album. It has different kinds of styles on it, like I've said. But to me, what I learned was finding a great producer because they understand, compositionally and how to, what to put out musically, as well as getting a great performance out of me. So, it's not for the faint of heart. When you're in there, it's funny because I love Paul. He's been amazing. I've done a ton of shows with him. He took me around all over the country to kind of show me the business aspect of it, which I greatly appreciated. So I think I've done 13 songs with him, about to do one more. So, and he kind of there's a term that he always tells me, and it just sticks in the back of my head. He's like, Rob, trust your producer. Because I'm like, well, I don't know about that. And he's like, trust your producer, and I'm like, all right, he's got the hardware, the double Grammys as a producer and all that, and a great human being. And I just had a lot of faith and trust in him, and that he would get the best performance out of me, and the best compositions. I did a lot of writing for that album, and he added some things like maybe tweak the bridge here, let's double up on the chorus there, let's do a little breakdown here. So I just trusted, compositionally what he was talking about. And he suggested this also, which I think is really appropriate to the question you're asking. What did I learn? I learned that my songs would be compositionally stronger if I co-write with others. And
Mm.
that's what I've done. I've written several songs with Roberto Vally and Tom Schumann from Spyro Gyra, many songs with Paul, several songs with Andrew Neu, several songs with Adam Hawley, and one song with Greg Manning. So, I'm not afraid to just say, yeah, let's make this song as great as it is. It's not about me, it's about the composition. So you're giving up writing and publishing, but that's okay because the song ultimately is stronger and better. And at the end of the day, that's what I want. And allowing my artistry, me as a trumpet player to come through. So the producer's, really good at that stuff. When you understand, you know, how I play and what I play and how, my musical choices, they can work in the studio to make it stronger and better. And, that's invaluable that a producer can bring that out in me, the artist.
What is we've had Paul on the show, we've had Greg on the show, we've had Adam on the show.
Yeah.
What when you call them and you know their reputation and kind of understand what they want, what does that do to you? Because in the short time that we're talking, you're a humble guy, but you're taking your ideas, your thought, your music, and basically giving it to somebody and say, make a hit. And these are, I mean, don't get me wrong. I had Paul on the show. I'm like, dude, I could sit here and just name the songs that you've produced,
Oh,
and it would take 12 and a half days.
yeah.
And that's probably still not all of them. So there's this extra added pressure, I think. Here's a song. What do you want me to do? Do you sit there like a little kid going, okay, yes, whatever you want? Or are there times when you, and fight back is probably not the right term, but interject your own ideas? What's the pressure like when you, those are mammoth producers.
They are. That's a great question, and I have a great response for that. When I first started working with Paul on my second album, and he produced the whole thing, I was very intimidated,
Right.
very, very intimidated. It's Paul Brown, and I didn't know him, So hear me step back a little bit. So I call him and I talk to him, and I send the songs, and he goes like, "Yeah, that's good." I send him like all these samples, and he's like, "Yeah, this is good." No, I don't like that one. Yeah, this is good. So okay, I appreciate that. So we went in with a bunch of songs that I had written. And then also people send you may or may not know this, but people send Paul a lot of material because it's
I'm
Paul
sure.
Brown. Yeah,
Yes.
so he gets a lot of stuff. And I'll talk about that relationship in a second because I utilize that to my advantage now. So when I met Paul and we go in the studio and I'm working with I call it like his wrecking crew, his guys,
Right.
incredible musicians. And they're the guys he works with. So, and they're all really great guys, but I was really intimidated in the studio, right? So, it was hard for me to push back. And I did so on one song. And it was Paul started taking this one particular song in a particular direction that I wasn't really a big fan of. So I kind of had this look on my face, and the guys in the band saw it. So they're like, "Hey, what's going on, Rob?" And I said, "Well, I kind of wanted it this way." And he goes, "Well, do you have a demo?" I said, "I sure do." So I played the demo, and they're like, "Oh, okay, that's cool. We did it." The song was called "Summer Nights," and it's one of my favorite songs to play. I played it a lot of my shows, and it turned out like great. But it was one incident where I kind of said, "No, Paul." And it was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. But since then, um, I think this is just my opinion. My
Hmm.
relationship with Paul, I've gone out there many times and we've done many songs since then. And I've played with Paul on many, many shows. He's the only guy I side with because it's Paul Brown and I love him and I know his show, so he takes me around. So I've done a lot of shows around the country and some abroad with Paul. So I've learned how to, interact with Paul and learned what
Right.
it what it takes to, to be that type of musician. And I think I've earned some respect. So now when I go out and do a song, instead of just Paul's way or no way, he'll look at me and goes, "Hey, well, what do you think about this? What about that?" So the way we write our songs now is I'll write a melody and he'll give me melodic ideas. He'll play stuff on guitar and then we'll blend the two. We'll merge the two. So it's a little bit of his ideas and a little bit of my ideas. And I think that makes it stronger, because Paul has a great eye on contemporary jazz,
Hmm.
like you said, 80 some number ones and hundreds of songs. So obviously massive respect on my part. But I think he listens to me now. And I don't mean that in an arrogant way. I think I finally earned a little bit of respect. So
Right.
like some of my ideas, like he's like, "Yeah, that's good. I really like that." And he said that to me, and I'm like, "Well, I've gotten to the point where I can, talk to Paul about that." So I'm past the being scared as a rabbit, and it's a great relationship. And like I said, man, I love him to death. He's so awesome, and really knows what he's doing. And I enjoy so much working with him. I'll be heading out there in a couple months to do another song. So, but it's taken a while. It's taken a
Right.
while, and like Greg was chill. Greg is Greg Manning, so he's
Yes.
really chill. And he's like, "That's okay, Rob, whatever you want." So we cooked up Take That. It's just an amazing song. He wrote most of it. I came up with melodies. We worked it out, different layers. Like, what about this? He's like, "Oh, no, that's fine." And Nils is a real collaboration. I love working with Nils Jipter. He's a great guitar player. And he gives me ideas and we go back and forth. And my next single is real killer. It's real up tempo. I'm excited to be releasing it in a couple months. And I appreciate that because rather than being dictated to by anyone, it's a collaboration. Same with Adam. Adam was really cool about that too. He comes up with ideas, I come up with ideas, and you just merge the two. And ultimately, the song is stronger.
Excellent, excellent. Speaking of music, you mentioned Take That. Let's take a listen to Take That on the Jazz Flyte Podcast with our guest, Rob Zinn. Welcome back to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I'm Darrell Scott. He's Rob Zinn. That song you just heard is Take That. It's actually produced by Greg Manning, who's been on the show. But Rob, let me ask you this. It's Greg Manning, it's Adam Hawley, it's Paul Brown, all very, 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 very busy producers. When you submit something that you want them to work with, how long does it take? Because I can't imagine Paul being, oh, I got the hours, I got a whole week available. I can't imagine he doesn't have 12 minutes available. How do you work the fact that you want to fit in, you want to get it done, but it's kind of on their timetable? What do you do with that?
Oh, it's absolutely true. It's their timetable. And since we're talking specifically about Paul Brown, he's his latest triumvirate of killer players, BPM, Bromberg and Paolo and himself. They're
Right.
very, very busy musically. And so not only is Paul producing lots of people, but he's also playing, I think, a lot more, but I don't hold me to that. I just see he's doing a lot of things. So what I do is reach out many months in advance, and I've kind of hopefully setting expectations. It's July. It's July.
Right.
I've kind of said, hey, Paul, I'm going to be out in your area in November. Can we do a song together? So I've kind of set expectations that no specific dates, but in November. So I'll have material for next year to release another single, and so that's what I've done. So right now we're culling material and we're working through like what's going to be good and all that. So matter of fact, he just sent me a song today that's very, very nice. So we'll plan on hopefully cutting that song in November sometime.
I just can't imagine the busy schedule and then trying to fit into his schedule with a number of things that he has done. I think at some point I'll just create a web page of songs that Paul Brown has produced. It'll probably be 32 pages, but
I'm
that's
sure you're right on that.
neither here nor there. So you've played with, so this is somewhat new to you, but you've played with Hawley, Jeff Ryan, my girl Reagan Whiteside, Blake Aaron, Greg Manning, and countless others. What are you learning from playing with them that you take to the front of the stage when you are the main player?
This is a good answer for your audience if they don't already know this, and I don't know the scope of your audience, but when I first started this journey of becoming this national jazz artist, I had a lot of self-doubt. Am I good enough? Can I write music? All these types of things. And I very quickly learned, probably about my first show, that I was good enough. But the aspect that I wasn't truly aware of is fronting the band and being the entertainer for the entire show. And I quickly learned that it wasn't about the music per se, it was about entertaining the audience. And that encompasses a lot of things, like JJ Sansaverino jumps up and down, Eric Darius has his jump. A lot of people have their different things that they do because every show is not just audio, it's not just
Right.
listening, it's extremely visual. So I quickly learned that I needed to be an entertainer, and I didn't have a problem with that. I just didn't really think too much about it going in. So it's talking to the audience. And I record a lot of my shows, and I do this, what I call 360 feedback, you probably know, where I watch my shows and go, oh, that's really good, say that, or that's not really good, don't do that. But it's all about connecting with your audience. That's the number one thing. Musically, hopefully, and visually, hopefully, but it's about them having a great time and being extremely present with them right in that moment. So when you do these massive jazz festivals, you miss that interpersonal connection. It's very, very hard when you're looking at it, thousands of people, and I've done a number of those. And clubs are fun because they allow you to really get personal with your audience because they're right there 10 feet away. And of course, like a lot of artists, I go out in the audience on every show, and it's kind of funny, man, because I'll be out there and during this one song, it's just I go out and play, and in between notes I'm playing, people don't know how to respond sometimes, and I'll
Hmm.
actually talk to them, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you talked to me," or
Right.
whatever. I'm
Yes.
just like, "Thank you for coming to the show," and and they want selfies, and I'm playing, and we'll do a picture and all that. But man, I really love that aspect of it because that means that I'm doing my job. And when I'm creating that moment with that person, it's so important because they made a decision to come to my show, spend money, spend their time to come to my show, and it's my job to make sure that they have a great time. And it's really enjoyable. So the entertainment factor is huge. It's not just music. And part of that is image, how I present myself on stage. If I'm doing a club, I have these nice suits I wear. If I'm out at a festival, I have a flashy shirt. Things like that. People they want to be entertained visually and auditorily. Is that the right word? I don't even know. But listening and visual, it's very important. So I've learned that from these people. The Reagans and certainly Paul and all the Jeff Ryan. Look at Jeff Ryan. He went through this big transformation. He's a beast now. He's been working out. He looks great. He's got everyone has how they present themselves is really, really important. You look at Marion Meadows, Eric Darius, they've cultivated their look. Boney
Hmm.
James, a perfect one with the hat and everything,
Yes.
everyone's different, but I cultivate a look as well.
I asked Boney, do you ever take the hat off?
I've seen a few pictures without a hat.
Yes.
Not on stage though.
Right. So how do you how do you develop your own style when you see what Eric Darius does, what JJ Severino does, what everybody does?
Yeah.
How do you find your niche? This is what I want to do, but I don't want to copy someone else. I don't want to do the same thing that somebody else does. How do you pick your thing, your spot?
Well, for me, I have to be because I'm a trumpet player. I can't jump around because I would not be able to play my notes. So, Eric and JJ, they jump around. Even Peter White, they jump around, and that's cool because they can play their instrument at the same time they're jumping. I can't, so I have to be very, very careful of my movements. So for me, what I make sure I do, if I'm wherever the venue is, whether it's a festival or a club, I make sure I cover all sides of the stage. That sounds pretty simple, but if you're tied in the front to a mic, and I'm not,
Mhm.
then you can't get around. So, and there are musicians who can't get around because they don't have a mobile instrument. So they're stuck behind wherever they are, and most keyboard players are that way. Most, I mean, Ali has a guitar, but Greg, Rob DeBoer, a lot of Keiko Matsui, they're stuck behind their keyboard, so they have to do the best they can without being mobile. So I make sure I hit all sides of the stage, and make sure I'm playing to people on the left, center, in between, and the far right at every show. So I'm trying to, and I make visual contact with them. That's kind of a weird thing. You're playing your trumpet and you make a visual contact, but I have to be really careful not to jump around too much. That being said, I try to be very active, moving as much as possible. And I got these things that are maybe they're a little corny, but and I'll tell the band it's like, okay, at G, we're gonna get real soft, and I'll stand there with my arms out, coming up to, marker G, and then I'll just bring my hands in, and the band gets instantly soft. I don't turn around. I just warn them beforehand, and it's like very effective. Sometimes I'll go down on my knees, and with my hand, a big sweeping motion. Just again, a visual sign I'm not playing, and I can actually do that. And I'm not really sure if the audience likes it. I hope that they do, but it's certainly better than just standing there. So
Yeah.
I try to incorporate a lot of movement into my show without adversely affecting my ability to play trumpet. And then I watch the videos and I say, oh, that's cool, or don't do that. Even just something where my horn is positioned, don't play down, keep my horn up, just things like that, And I'm a fan of Rick Braun, so I've seen Rick's shows a few times, and so I take a few cues from him as well. Why
Okay.
not? Learn from the best,
Learn
right?
from the best. Once again, we're going to listen to some of your music. This is something new. It's called Weekend Games on the Jazz Flyte Podcast with our guest today, Rob Zinn. That is Weekend Games by our guest today, Rob Zinn. Rob, we just mentioned it. Cell phones are great because you could turn them off and you can still get messages. And I just found a message where Michael Paulo wants to be on the show. Michael is on this record, this Weekend Games.
He is. First of all, congrats on having Michael on the future show. That's really awesome. He's an incredible musician. You know his background. Yeah, so him and Paul Brown, Paul produced Weekend Games. So we were kicking around sax players, and of course, man, I love Michael's playing. He played on Summer Nights on my second album, so I'm well versed with his abilities and his tremendous talents. So it was great. And this time I got to be in studio when he was laying his parts down. It was really, really a lot of fun just to watch him. Such a pro and just great tone, great ideas. Right, I was right there next to Paul as Michael was cutting the track for Weekend Game, so it was really a real pleasure for me to witness that. And oh, he sounds great, you know. And I love trumpet sax. You know, I mean, what got me in this business was kind of the Rick Boney thing, Richard Elliott. You know, the trumpet back and forth. So a lot of my writing is that. That's why I had Andrew Neu on many tracks and Jeff Ryan on a track and Michael Paulo on a couple tracks because trumpet and tenor go so well together. So, you know, we're doing a lot of this conversation throughout the song and then toward the end as we solo out. And it's just a lot of fun. You know, Michael is one of the best, as you probably know. So yeah, him in Weekend Games, you know, he elevated that track was what, of course, was hoping exactly what I was hoping for.
Here's the thing that gets me. I've done 100 of these shows. It is remarkable. I can't mention a name without whoever I'm talking to knowing that person.
Oh yeah.
The friendship in this jazz community is tremendous to me, whether it's you and then Michael Paulo and then Paul Brown and Greg Manning. And it's just Jonathan Butler and Kirk Whalum are represented by the same company. And it's just like, seriously? Do you guys, not that I want dirt, but everybody's singing Kumbaya. And the greatest thing would be this, and it'll never happen because you can't do it all at the same time. I want to find a venue, Hollywood Bowl. We have a place out here called Blossom Music Center. It's an outdoor facility where I can get, I don't know, and I don't think I'm being outrageous, where I can get 90 of you musicians together to play a song and just to be on stage. And you kind of going, Rob comes in and does his solo, then somebody goes out, and then somebody else comes in and does their solo. But on the other aspect, I want to have you all sit down and I just want to have a cup of coffee with you guys to talk life because your life is so different than mine and the people that you entertain. But it's one of those, you get to know these people and the conversations you have are the greater thing. Rob, we're going to talk more and more and more and more and more throughout the years. But the relationships that we can create from this, like I said, to sit down and go, okay, I'm coming to town. I'm going to get there the day before. Can you meet us at this restaurant at this time? And let's just talk. It is, that part amazes me. And I've been doing this for a long time. So I've gotten to know, there's a picture of George Howard behind me. George was a good friend. George is the only person ever told me, turn off the tape recorder. Like, I'm in trouble. And it wasn't that he just wanted to say some things that he didn't necessarily want recorded.
Sure.
But how do these relationships evolve, start, whatever?
One of the things that I've found, and I call this my journey in contemporary jazz, you know, and it's not a destination, it's not arriving somewhere. It's literally the journey to get to wherever I'm going to be headed to down the road in the years to come. And I think a lot of the musicians would agree that some of the most fun we have is the hangs, the green room, sometimes just traveling on the bus, like when I was doing Berks. Just a couple stories. One time I was on the bus with the band War. I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. And one time I was on the bus with Kirk Whalum and Blake Aaron, and that was pretty cool. And I didn't know them really at that time. It
Right.
was a number of years ago. So I'm just kind of listening and watching and all that kind of stuff. And it's a lot of fun. Of course, they're just regular people like we are. Um, and the very first time I met Rick Braun, I was so nervous because, he's such an inspiration and quite frankly, an idol. Well, I've seen Rick many times. We talk shop. Hey, well, that trumpet, I got, Rob, we talk valve oil, not very sexy things, but, we're trumpet players. So
Right.
it's pretty cool, and it's just so much fun to have those backstage hangs when you're talking about just personal things. Sometimes it's music, sometimes it's just life stuff.
Right.
You really get to know the people. Like a year ago, I was backstage, and Rick and Richard were on the show, and I was there, and Jazz Funk Soul was there. So
Mm.
I'm just going to go with Jeff Lorber, right? How big is Jeff Lorber?
Right.
How
Yes.
big is he? Dating back to the 70s, Jeff Lorber,
Yes.
which I was a fan of.
Wizard
Jeff
Island.
doesn't know
Yeah.
who the hell I am, but he was over there, and I usually I'm just pretty cool in the green room because we're all on that festival, and I kind of feel like I'm on equal footing. But there's Jeff, and I'm like, all right, I got to go and introduce myself. So I go over to Jeff. I'm just saying, I can be a fan too, right? So hey, Jeff, I'm Rob Zinn. I just wanted to say hi. I've been a big fan of your music for a long time. He's looking at me like, he was very eloquent, but just a moment like that, I just wanted to say hi. And same thing with Nick Coleone. I gotta give you Nick's story because this is really important. And of course, we all know he passed. Everyone's got a great Nick story, and so do I. So I'm at Berks for the first time. It's probably about 2018. I'm backstage with all these monster musicians, and I'm a rookie and I'm scared to death. And there's, all these people, and I don't even know any of them. So, of course, I know who they are. I just never had met them. So Nick comes right over to me, the first guy, the pretty much kind of the only person, and just says, "Hey, my name is Nick Coleone," and he introduced himself to me, and I just thought, wow,
That
that was really
that's pretty
telling. Of
cool.
course, it was because how big was Nick, and for him to come over, he probably saw my nervousness and
Right.
just came over and broke the ice and just introduced himself first, rather than me walking up and going, "Oh, I'm Robson." So I thought it really spoke volumes to me, and of course, I've since got to know him a little bit better after that. We performed together. It was pretty cool. But what a tremendous human being. And I never forgot that. And I just wanted to share that, backstage at
Hmm.
Green Room that hang I'm talking about, where you kind of get to know the musicians on sometimes a different level. And I just really appreciated that he reached out to me. And Brian Bromberg did the exact same thing. It was pretty cool. But Nick was a first. He came over, and I thought,
Hmm.
as big as he was at that moment, and he just wanted to make me feel at home. And it was just it was a great man, a
Okay.
great
Before
musician.
before we go, in your live set, you play a song for Chuck Mangione. Of course, we just lost Chuck Mangione. Why is that important to you?
I think it's important to me to honor those who kind of paved the way for what we're doing currently today, right now. And that song was played on a flugelhorn, which I started playing back in 10th grade. And so I kind of enjoy that. I love the tone of the horn. Chuck made it sexy and cool to play it. He had a massive crossover hit with "Feel So Good,"
Hmm.
and it was not just a jazz song. There were several bands back then doing it. Spyro Gyra was another one, massive
Hmm.
crossover hits. Played on AM FM radio back in the day. Or I guess technically both. So I got to the point where I wanted to learn how to play that song. And I tell you, it's funny. I kind of joke at all my shows, say this song really is difficult for me, and I try to play it perfectly, and I never have. I get close. So I really try to honor his musicianship through that song. And it's great, man, because whenever I play it, I never give the title away. I just start playing it, and
Right.
people know instantly what that song is.
Right.
And I do this
Yes.
rubato in the beginning, just me and guitar, like Chuck did. And I really try to give the audience almost exactly what Chuck did. And I know some contemporary artists might go, oh, that's not cool, be yourself and all that. No, the reason for that song is to honor exactly what Chuck did. So I play what Chuck plays in that song, and I try my best to give the audience his interpretation, his original interpretation back in the day. And that's my goal. That's my goal, to honor him and what he did for music, for contemporary jazz nowadays. He started that, and Grover Washington Jr., of course, but there's several back in the day. And actually, you may not know this, but I do the same with a Bobby Caldwell song.
Okay.
And I sing "What You Won't Do for Love," and rather than take it all over the place and just reharmonize it and change it, I honor, to the best of my abilities, Bobby Caldwell's original version on back from the 70s. And that's also important to me. Everyone knows the song, everyone's surprised that I'm singing it. And I just want to give those two kind of songs to the audience, as a token for my appreciation for what the people who came before me did. They paved the way for what I'm doing today. So I try really hard to emulate Bobby Caldwell and do his version, and emulate Chuck Mangione and do his version.
Very
And
nice.
the audience loves it, and it gets a big round of applause. And I do those at every one of my shows.
Nice.
And that's
Excellent.
just my tribute to the greats who came before me. And obviously now they're both passed on, so the world will never hear them play that music again. So it's my little.
Ode to them.
Oh yeah, exactly. So
So how can our fans follow you, keep up with everything that you're doing, where you're touring, when you got new music coming out, all that sort of stuff?
that's a great question. So my website is robzinn.com, and that's Zinn, and only one B. I don't somehow on social media, you're like laughing. Sometimes I get these things, it's ROBBZIN. None of that's true. It's ROBZINN.com. And from there, they can jump off and follow me on what is it, X, I guess, Twitter, X.
Yes.
Follow me on Facebook, Rob Zinn Music. Follow me on the different platforms. But this, Bands in Town is a great platform to let everyone know, not just me, but people can follow all their artist favorites on Bands in Town. It's a great venue. I'm sorry, it's a great application. So I put all my shows there. Emails go out. You can search all your artists, and it's not intrusive. So I encourage people to follow me on Bands in Town, and they'll know when my next single's coming out. They'll know where I'm playing, and they're part of the neighborhood. So Bands in Town, and just follow Rob Zinn there. You can search and find me, or you can go to robzinn.com and follow me there on Bands in Town and all my other social media. And I don't send a million emails out. I respect people's privacy. Obviously, we never sell any of the information. I honor the different platforms don't do
Hmm.
that. So yeah, they'll find out all they want to know. My bios are there. I have videos. I'm on all those platforms like everyone else, but you
Right.
can find it all at robzinn.com. So there you
All right.
go. Thank you for asking that and allowing me to pitch that.
No, you got to, because we'll talk later.
Yeah,
Um, Rob, thank you. This has been great. This is one of those instances where you're an artist I don't know necessarily a lot about, except for reading and following the internet stuff. So this has been great. As I tell everybody doesn't always agree. I reserve the right to be able to call you back in the future, whether it's to talk about more new music or something. Please keep Jazz Flyte on your list when you release stuff, so we can put it out to our social media. Uh, there's too much good music done by you guys that we need to make sure that everybody can get a hold of it. So thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Jazz Flyte the podcast. I'm Darrell Scott. If you really like what we do and you want to see some things, you can subscribe. You can email me at jazzflyte@gmail.com. You can get a hold of me just like you can get a hold of Rob. Okay? All right. Thank you. We'll talk to you next week.
thank you so much, Darrell, for having me on. It was my honor and pleasure to be a guest on your show today. Thank you, my brother.
Thank you for tuning in to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I hope you enjoy these stories and soulful melodies that grew through the doors of time. If you want to stay connected with the latest updates and episodes, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell. Until next time, I'm Darrell Scott.